The big one. Not the big one. No, that's on the 11 in the morning. It's yeah. And light kind of little cars. Position the camera. Do you notice it? I think it's beyond. Yes, yes, because in the end, even if it's the marina will it's good to be honest. You know, it's these things. Okay, you get your answer like in 5 minutes.
Try this over yours, just so that it goes. Try this over yours, so you post something from that about try it up to you. You can say there was something on the conference. You can have pictures of you that you can take about.
With the result and specific messages.
Because I researched something like on the right side, so I don't have that much. If you want to make it to listen and also, that will publish. But I'm really speaking from
We will wait like 2 minutes for the MEP from Bulgaria to come, Mr. Hristo. Amana was just telling me that Mr. Petrov is stuck in a traffic jam. Like we will wait 2 3 more minutes for him to come and then we start. Thank you for your understanding.
Yeah.
What the
The children were telling they have windows towards the ceiling. So they it's better than the outside, actually. It's true.
in my area we have
This is a blue sky as well.
even more time.
Yeah.
And it's always
Definitely helps with the light therapy.
I went, so we went the whole team to hike via Czech Republic.
which part?
Oh,
Because one part is passing my house.
really? I forgot the name of, so we met the founder of
Shirley?
yeah. Where? Yeah, I guess. Hello, hello. Hi. Very nice to meet you. Hello. No problem at all. No problem. Yes, I was saying I was happy I got here on time. I took a tram that left me halfway, so that was amazing. Yeah, it's always getting a little bit with some snow.
Yes, but I'm from Brussels, so it's also difficult. Like it's not that everything feels like that. So it's a nice good story.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we're not in a rush.
Okay. Yeah, so it's communication.
And I think my boss would have liked to be here herself. But she's in Ireland today, so
Okay.
it's always traveling.
Just we, as I said, we wait for them
Yes,
when we can meet.
yes, absolutely. And I will insist even more after today.
Okay. Yeah. So very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
I meet you 2 weeks ago.
In Romania, oh yeah.
The launching of the big project,
Yeah.
the social service highway.
Oh yeah, okay. No, and she goes every weekend to Romania, and then she usually tries to have meetings and participate in events, and now she does that again. So, but I was just saying I had my first visit actually ever to Romania. I'm embarrassed to say, but it was a very nice visit in June when the whole team went.
You were in the central part, like near Brasov.
Relatively close to Brasov, yeah, exactly. So, but I did a few moments. I was still.
Hristo, Szegerasz, Betania, Gimbal.
What's the place called?
Prague.
But now I need to. Now I am embarrassed of that. I don't remember. Very good, very good. So this photo is taken in Tita Virgal.
Okay.
Do we know when?
From Brasov. From Brasov.
No internet connection. No.
There is they keep in the trial path, like Camino, but from northeast Slovenia to west until 1,400 kilometers.
Yes. Fantastic.
But it's built in a way that it's not really connected to the big centers. They just some small places. but the idea is to connect with the local life, the local reality. You can sleep in the cheaper place in the mountains, close to peasants. I bought the house on the path. The mountain house I feel like both bikes, it's literally passing in the mountain.
And how much time do you spend there? I mean, you live there or you are based here in Brussels?
I'm living in Romania.
Yeah.
It's like 20 minutes from my office. That's
Yeah.
And I'm planning to move there.
It's like also like a cottage.
Now it looks like a cottage, but I'm planning next year to build a house. So,
Yeah.
but it's nice, it's quiet.
Yeah, so I have the feeling of I have my country house cottage in not in the mountains, but in the part of Sweden where there are lots of forests and things. So I think the environment and the nature that you come from, you always feel safe there, and you want to go back and after 15 years in Brussels.
I guess I will start. And this will be good. And when he's coming, I will I think because
It's always difficult.
Good morning, everybody. I guess we will start, and when Mr. Petrov is coming, he will join us, because otherwise we will be very delayed with other activities. Good morning, and welcome to our ERGO Network Annual Policy Conference. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you, to welcome our speakers on behalf of European Roma Grassroots Organization Network. We are a network of 30, actually more than 30, NGOs from almost 30 countries in Europe. Gabi's signalizing that we are 33 members, but the reality is that we are a living body which is growing constantly, and this is the nicest part in our network. We represent Roma and pro-Roma organizations all around Europe, working to advance, protect, and promote access to rights and social inclusion for Roma and with Roma. Something very important. To this meeting, we are people from different environments, let's call it like that. Some of us were civil society, some of us were institutions, some of us from local level. Let's see who's here actually. How many of you are from civil society? Can you raise up the hands? Thank you. How many of you represent decision makers? Like institutions, EU institutions, local institutions. Thank you, thank you. Let's see the other part. How many of you graduated university, completed higher education? You're lucky. How many of you had the right to quality and inclusive education? You say quality and inclusive education.
What about it?
You had the right to attendance. Almost everybody. Nice. Nice to see this. Thank you for your answers. It's interesting to see we are speaking about this, but people which really are affected by this, they are not here. We will try, actually with our colleagues, we try to bring the voice of those people here and try to understand better what is happening. Today, we want to take a closer look to Roma access to quality and inclusive education, as well to the role of the EU and national Roma frameworks on this, with trying to put the bigger focus on combating anti-Gypsyism, because in many of the cases, anti-Gypsyism is the root cause which leads to exclusion from education. As we already know, most Roma experiment exclusion, and which is from education, from school, in different other fields. And in many of our countries, we still see segregated schools. We still see schools where we need to pay. And even where you don't need to pay, sometimes the fact that you need to pay for the meal of the kid, or for the books, or for different other parts which that kid need to attend education, makes education be, for some families, hard accessible, and make it not be 100% free, which it's generating, let's say, some barriers on accessing education. At the same time, the teachers' training, which are many times not adequately prepared to work with Roma kids and to understand the reality of Roma kids, it's another barrier in the access to quality education. In the last year, in 2025, since the beginning of this year, 2025, our colleagues from ERGO Network made a study from 6 EU countries. You have it on your desks, tables, in which they try to see the real image of access to education in this country, on access to quality and inclusive education. It happened in Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania, Spain, and Hungary. And they try to capture the, please, Mr. Petrov. Welcome.
Sorry for getting late.
They try to capture the reality and see which are the barriers which keep kids out of education. I want to thank the authors for this, and my colleague Amana, who contributed to do the, let's say, the summarize all together and make a comparison between countries to see the realities. And the synthesis report was launched today, like you're the first one seeing it. It will be sent to all EU institutions and national actors to see the reality of the Roma and the access of those kids to education, because as you know, in many researches, it's a reality. Roma kids and Roma young people have a very low access to education, and the school dropout of those kids is the highest in Europe. In first panel today, we will listen to people. Ms. Eva Schultz, the head of the cabinet, or
almost.
almost
My head of cabinet would not quite agree.
member of the cabinet of Roxana Mînzatu, which is executive vice president of the European Commission. She will speak on behalf of Ms. Mînzatu about this topic, and a very close friend of ERGO Network, who, even if we don't have a Roma MEP in the parliament, he's supporting like he will be a Roma MEP, and he was always open to discussions and to back up our proposals in the European Parliament. Mr. Hristo Petrov from Bulgaria, and we want to thank you for being here and for accepting our invitation to discuss today about this very important topic for Roma. In the second panel, we will have the experts and people from different countries speaking about the status quo of the implementation of the EU Roma Strategic Framework in both EU and enlargement countries. Very important. ERGO, it's a network which covers both EU and non-EU countries. We consider that it's very important to have this general overview, not just EU, because Roma are living also beyond the EU borders. And we will try to discuss in the second panel about the evaluation made by our colleagues, leaded with the support of Izabela Mihalache, about national Roma frameworks and how they are translated at EU level and how they are implemented practically at local level in the community. Because as ERGO Network, we really believe that the local level is very important. It's the one making the things move. We can make very nice policies here in Brussels, but if there are no people at local level, like most of my colleagues from this room, those policies are just documents. I would like to thank all the people who respond to our survey, because in order to do this research, we sent a survey all around Europe and we gathered this info. I also want to mention that we have online people who are watching and will contribute to this meeting. And the meeting is live streamed and recorded. If somebody of you is not okay with us, now is the moment to say, or for you to know this is happening. Also, my colleagues put here in the speech that I need to speak about the code of conduct of ERGO, which we adopted this code of conduct and we try to respect it. If something is happening during the meeting and you believe that it's not respecting the code of conduct which is there on the door, please refer to Gabi, our director, and she will take the measures which need to be taken. This being said, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Eva Schultz to give us the message of Ms. Mînzatu.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation, and very grateful to be here today. I feel after these important initial words also very grateful that I have two children who have access to quality and inclusive education. I will remind them tonight that when they feel that they would like to do something else than going to school, that it's a gift, it's a luxury, and it's how we start our path to and through society. And this is why, one reason why the topic of our exchange here today is so extremely important. I feel also grateful that I can be here on behalf of Executive Vice President Roxana Mînzatu, who is such a committed commissioner and vice president in charge of a large portfolio. Education is especially the topic of our discussion today, and this is one of our areas of responsibilities together with employment and social rights. And in her capacity as vice president, she oversees, she coordinates all the Commission's work on the Union of Equality. And she's a strong believer, extremely committed, and working intensely together with Commissioner Lavie, who also is responsible Commissioner for Equality, for making the Union of Equality a reality. Now, having said that, she has a particular strong feeling and commitment in relation to Roma equality and inclusion. So I know that she would have liked to be herself today, as is the case so often with our commissioners. She travels today, but I know that she would find the time to meet with the ERGO Network. I think today's meeting and discussions come extremely timely at a point in time when we're midway through the implementation of the EU Roma Strategic Framework, the one running from 5 years ago and still 5 years ahead. It comes at an important time as well because the Commission is taking measures under the responsibility of my EVP in a broader perspective, addressing social challenges, anti-poverty or addressing poverty through anti-poverty measures and looking into the whole life cycle of education and skills. But just if you allow me to look back for a moment, I started working the first time in the Commission in 2010. I entered then as a national expert to what was then the Director General responsible for justice, freedom and security. And it was the time when the Commission brought together in a more coordinated way than before, in a more systematic way than before, all the different relevant services to address challenges faced by the Roma population. And I think it was quite an important step in the sense that it was the first time that, at least within the Commission, we really saw the need to bring everyone around the table. It's a rather logical step, one may think, but it's not always the case, and it has not always been the case. So I entered into the Commission, started working on integration policies, just at this time when we sat down around the table to address what can be done, what needs to be done at European level, at the Commission level, to address Roma exclusion, Roma facing poverty, Roma facing challenges in their daily life in the national context. And by setting and framing the first EU Roma Strategic Framework and pushing member states, encouraging member states to adopt and put in place their national strategic frameworks, I think that the Commission took quite an important step. I have worked on many other issues since then, but now, a year ago, when I returned to the areas of social policies and inclusion, I'm of course pleased to see that the second EU Roma Strategic Framework continues the important work built 15 years ago of taking measures in all the relevant policy areas to address exclusion and poverty. At the same time, looking at the outcome of the Roma survey of last year, of course, I feel sad to see that 15 years later, although we see progress in many areas, including Roma children to a larger extent going to school or entering into university or having to face less challenges in their everyday life, altogether the picture is still very, very challenging. And that at a time when the world around us puts additional challenges to us, extreme challenges, and in a time where we as an institution actually struggle to keep our focus on social inclusion, affordability, cost of living. There are paradoxes in our everyday life, and I could not have this conversation with you without being honest about those. We have on the one hand an increasing understanding of how important it is that the EU institutions, that the top level of politicians and decision makers put full focus on the challenges faced by the Roma people, by people in vulnerable situations, by children, the young people, and we have the expression of that when our president in her State of the Union speech in September dedicated a large amount of time to challenges related to affordability of housing, affordability in your everyday life triggered by rising energy costs or transport costs. We take a number of initiatives, but at the same time, we live in an era when a lot of our attention is very much focused on competitiveness, making sure that our businesses and industries are profitable, that they grow, that they are not challenged by administrative burdens. We have a very strong focus on defense because we have war around us, and there are competing priorities for the institution. And that is the everyday life of us, our team, of my executive vice president. And I need to give that as a background to how important it is that she is the fighter in the everyday life of the European Commission for ensuring quality and inclusive education. We took the initiative at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of this mandate, to present the Union of Skills. which aims to look at the whole life cycle of skills of education, all the way from early childhood care and education through basic skills, ensuring that all children have access to basic education, up to higher education and lifelong learning, vocational education and training. And of course, this is just the framework, but it's a framework in which we take numerous initiatives across the board, which should not least address the issue of ensuring that the children furthest away from education manage to get basic and skills and education. And this is also the background to the initiatives we are taking in the coming period. We are preparing the follow-up of the latest action plan under the European Pillar of Social Rights. We have as a first principle the principle on access to basic education. Once again, to underline how important it is. We had an action plan. Member states have committed to making sure that the social pillar is a reality, but we will follow up early next year what has happened in practice and what measures need still to be taken to make this a reality. And that goes together with what we say is the first ever anti-poverty strategy. It's a bit of a truth with certain modification, because of course the Commission has since a long time taken broad initiatives to address poverty and social exclusion. But we want to make it more encompassing. We want to have all those colleagues around the table that we brought around the table 15 years ago to make sure that it's not only through the Roma Strategic Framework that we address the challenges still faced in to such a large extent by Roma people, and not least our children and young. And EVP Mînzatu is also a front figure across the College of Commissioners to make sure that the issue of affordability, the issue of cost of living, the issue of exclusion is addressed not only by herself. So her colleague, Commissioner Jorgensen, for example, will present a week before Christmas the affordable housing plan, something so essential in all of our societies to have access to quality and dignified housing and living. And what else is a condition for children to be able to go to school, if not the living circumstances, our housing conditions. So I think it's more important than ever to work not only through the Roma Strategic Framework, but through these different initiatives that we are taking. And I think I keep saying my EVP is always eager to take action, not only to come with more words and commitments. And of course, we always need to look at the variety of tools that we have at hand. We have legislation. We have taken important steps since the last 20-25 years to put in place anti-discrimination legislation, equality legislation. But the broad-reaching Equal Treatment Directive is still in negotiation since 17 years, and we still need to ensure that we have the basic framework in place to allow us to enforce the treaty-based obligations of equality and non-discrimination. We do work with policy coordination, and more importantly than ever, we present next week as part of the European semester a new cross-cutting European recommendation on human capital. Because what is, if not our people, our most important and most valuable asset in the European Union, and the education and skills that they come with. So a cross-cutting EU-wide recommendation on human capital is fundamental for everything from ensuring basic education to ensuring that we have the skills needed in the future. And of course, the conversation that we're having is based on rights and equality, but there is also an economic imperative in bringing people into society, into education, and into the labor market. Last but not least, funding, of course, is perhaps the most powerful tool. And so the Executive Vice President is in charge of the European Social Fund Plus, and she has been a defender, she has been a fighter in ensuring in the Commission's proposal for the next multi-annual financial framework that we will safeguard a European social fund and a minimum level threshold for how much member state governments and sub national levels on social policy objectives. We have funding instruments at EU level as well, of course. Erasmus when it comes to education, CERC when it comes to citizens' rights and equality. But that said, we also need to acknowledge that we can never do this job alone. We need to work together among the EU institutions, with stakeholders, with national governments and the sub-national governments. And I think we're completely acknowledging that fact when we look at across the board of what we can do more in the coming 5 years. And we will come, as you know, in 2026 with the next implementation report of the regarding the EU Roma Strategic Framework. I fear that it will point at many and big remaining challenges, but for every step we advance, for every box that becomes green and is not screaming red in terms of challenges, this is worth it. This is worth it, and it may look gloomy in terms of reaching the objectives by 2030, but you have an extremely committed friend and fighter in my executive vice president in the Commission, and she works together with the other commissioners, not least Commissioner Lavin, in advancing step by step and pushing through the different policy agendas for Roma inclusion and equality being high on priorities when others are pulling in other directions. So with those words, I'm also very grateful to have the chance to listen here today and not only to speak. Thank you.
It's very, I don't know, with a lot of information and very nice said the part connected with the access to education, and also we like to hear that the European Commission is still trying to keep the social on the agenda, which is a very important part of the full funding which will come in the next period, because it's not just about war and the new programs which they are trying to put them aside, put them into the front and put aside the social part, which we think is a very important part for Europe and for European citizens in general, because the access to equal housing, equal education, equal citizenship, it's very important. We think it's the base of the European Union. And now we are in a crucial moment with extremist parties are growing, and if we don't take care, it's not just about Roma, it's in general about Europe. And if we don't take care on this social part and the people which are behind, the other part will grow, which will not be good for you. Thank you for your very kind words, and I want to give the floor now to Mr. Hristo Petrov, who always was open and a very good supporter of Roma policies.
Thank you for giving me the floor today. So,
It's working, no?
hopefully,
No. If you start speaking, perhaps it came back.
yeah. So maybe.
Maybe I turned it off.
No, it's no more battery. No?
Yes.
So, dear colleagues, again, thank you for giving me the floor today. Maybe I have to start a bit informal. My name is Hristo Petrov. I'm from Bulgaria, and well, I would say I'm not a professional politician because all my life I've been a rap performer. 4 years ago, a guy asked me for help in Bulgaria. I helped him. He became prime minister. I was elected in Bulgarian parliament. It's a long story, never mind. But I was member of the social committee in the Bulgarian parliament, and also vice chair of the committee of education for a while. And in the European Parliament, I'm vice chair of the Cult Committee and also member of the Ample Committee, Employment and Social Affairs. And my main topic in Bulgaria in the last 4 years was and still is disadvantaged children and children placed in institutions. And more than half of them are Roma. So this is something that you know better than me. For generations, many Roma families have carried the weight of poverty, marginalization, and anti-Gypsyism. And of course, this affects every aspect of a child's life, especially the one that can be the key to unlocking all other opportunities, education. We must remember the gap we see today is not a gap in ability or aspiration. It's a gap created by conditions no child chooses. When any child grows up in an overcrowded home that might not have electricity or heat, the child will struggle to focus on studying. And if any child faces hunger, their first goal would be related to finding a solution to that. And that's everyday life for 54% of Roma children in Europe. And even among the other 46% who may not be so deprived, Roma children experience underestimation and discrimination, whether in the classroom, at the doctor's, or simply on the street. They learn detrimentally early that they are not treated as equal. And in addition to that, any child who sees their parents denied decent employment, a doctor's appointment, or basic kindness, internalizes a message that no society should ever send. And the report before us, the report before us makes this very clear. Socioeconomic disadvantage and anti-Gypsyism correlate directly with educational achievement. And this should not surprise you, but it is totally unacceptable. Education remains the strongest driver for change and opportunity, yet the first step for a child, early educational care, is missing for Roma children in Bulgaria, in Czechia, in Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and Spain. And we do see encouraging examples such as mediators and local mentorship schemes, but participation rates are far below national average. And with that base, it's difficult to scale up. We have a council recommendation on high quality early education and care systems, and it's something I also strongly advocate for through strengthening the child guarantee, a tool that can be very useful to fight child poverty and lack of access to services. Through my work on the anti-poverty strategy, I have worked to ensure that the child guarantee and the EU Roma Strategic Framework function in a complementary and mutually reinforcing way. In all three instruments, Roma children are identified as most in need, and this recognition must translate into concrete interventions. And holistic approaches are not optional. They are the only path forward. Education policies cannot be effective if they focus solely on the learner and ignore the circumstances in which learning takes place. We must look at the entire ecosystem, the family, the neighborhood, the community, and the systems that either support or undermine the development of Roma children. Because children's outcomes do not begin in the classroom. They begin in the home, in the community, and then in broader society. Without aligned progress in every dimension, we risk repeating the same cycles and then wondering why our education interventions fall short. So I will also be examining how the youth guarantee has reached Roma young people, because we must demonstrate through real examples that when a child is supported to stay in school and succeed, pathways to decent employment truly open up. With strong measures in training and both formal and non-formal learning, we can create those opportunities. But for young Roma to benefit, they must first be supported to remain in education, and they must be informed, encouraged, and empowered to access these programs. Access to decent employment is also a vital step for Roma parents, because stable and dignified work strengthens not only family income, but confidence, social inclusion, and the ability to support children's education. This is why reskilling and upskilling opportunities, training to keep pace with labor market needs in the green and digital transitions, and recognizing prior learning are all priorities that I and my political group, Renew Europe, strongly advocate for. In this context, we look forward to the upcoming quality jobs roadmap designed to promote quality employment across the EU. It will be a crucial instrument for advancing social fairness and securing a truly just transition for all, including Roma communities. So we acknowledge the progress made so far with the national Roma strategic frameworks. We also acknowledge that these efforts remain far from sufficient. At the current pace, the EU's 2030 targets for Roma inclusion will not be met. So, dear colleagues, we cannot rely on a single instrument to resolve the complex challenges faced by Roma communities, because these are the result of multiple layers of disadvantage accumulated over generations. And to see real change happen, we must use the full range of tools available to all EU citizens while complementing them with the Roma Strategic Framework as a most tailored approach. And the ESF Plus has already enabled important and successful initiatives across the Union, demonstrating its value as a driver of inclusion. And it's essential that this funding stream continues to support Roma communities and remains a strong pillar of EU efforts to promote equality and social justice. I'm not sure if the microphone is necessary, but well, I've lived all my life, maybe the last 30 years, so maybe with the mic is better. Anyway, with this in mind, today's discussion is an important opportunity to reflect, to be challenged, and to gather the information we need to put parties involved to do more. Every Roma child deserves school with the same sense of possibility as any other child. And they deserve families that can uplift them, teachers who believe in them, and systems that protect them, and society that celebrate them. So, thank you once again for the chance to be here to discuss with you. I look forward to hearing your contributions and to using this exchange to strengthen our collective for meaningful progress. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Petrov. Thank you for your constant support for the idea of equality and inclusion and participation of Roma, which is very important. I also want to thank to Ms. Eva Schultz for her speech and for the kind words about what will happen and what the Commissioner Mînzatu is trying to push for education for Roma. And I want to close this panel with a sentence which I think it's very meaningful, and we are using it in the NGO where I'm coming from. Alternative to poverty is education. The best tool to break the cycle is education. I want to invite the second panel and Mr. Andrei Frank from Lifelong Learning Platform will be the moderator of the second panel to come into the floor. Sites like monitoring the training.
Thank you so much. I'll do it without the microphone. Let's see. How well can you hear me in the back? Are we good? Excellent. If you need the volume to go up, you point up. If you need the volume to go down, you point down. Shall we do it like this? Excellent. Good morning, and thank you all for joining this conference. It was great to have this open session with the institutional perspective. I was actually struck by what Daniel was saying when he asked us the question, who has followed opportunities for education, who has had the chance to engage in education and training. And it's true that we're a very privileged group here. I won't, it's also surprising to talk about privilege when this is a human right, actually, education and training. So it's going to be an interesting panel discussion that we're going to have. My name is Andrej Frank. I'm a policy and advocacy manager at the Life Conversion Platform. So I'm also not a neutral moderator myself, which is probably why they pushed me a bit to the side in the panel, rather than doing so much the conversation. But we're here to discuss this report that you have on your tables that the ERGO Network has presented, has prepared for Roma access to quality and inclusive education. Daniel was mentioning that this report is looking at 6 particular countries that have a higher population of Roma living within their borders. So there's case studies from Bulgaria, from Czech Republic, from Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and Spain. But there's also some benchmarking evidence coming from Ireland and Sweden across the pages of this report. You have it around the table, so I do encourage you to have a look through it, skim it as we discuss about it. But first and foremost, before I move into our life cycle panel with your perspectives from different sectors of education, maybe it's good to hear a bit about the report. So we actually have with us an expert that contributed to the report. I'm speaking about Roxana. She's holding a PhD on social affairs, working in Slovakia as the chairwoman of the Roma Advocacy and Research Center. Roxana is also the vice chairwoman of the ERGO Network, so standing on the ERGO Network board, and the author of the Slovakian case study. So who best to actually introduce us into this work than Roxana? The floor is yours. Come here and present the report. Round of applause for Roxana, please. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all? I will try to speak more loudly that you can hear me. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much that you're here. So as was already mentioned, this meeting is about education and about the quality and inclusive education. And I would like to present you our research and our findings. So, my name is Zuzana Havirova, and I'm representing Roma Advocacy and Research Center from Slovakia, and also ERGO Network, as I'm vice chair of the board of ERGO. So can we start the presentation? And as many information you already have, I will not repeat it, and then we can maybe be quickly that we are late in our program. So. So I will start, and then we will continue with the presentation. Okay. So thank you very much. This was already mentioned what ERGO is, but just repeat that ERGO is a European umbrella organization. There are 32 organizations in 26 European countries. We are representing grassroots Roma communities, and were founded in 2008. And our main objectives are combat anti-Gypsyism, poverty, inequality, and of course strengthen the Roma civil society. Please, next slide. So when we speak about Roma, this is very important to know that the umbrella term Roma covers diverse groups, including Roma, Sinti, travelers, Romanichels, Boyash, Dari, Ashkali, Egyptians, Yenish, Lom, Rom, and Abdal. Estimated about 12 million Roma live in Europe, and approximately 6 million in the European Union. And there are a lot of surveys or researches about Roma, about their living conditions, about their access to different services, or about their access to human rights. And we choose the latest EU France survey that says that 70% of Roma are at risk of poverty. 31 reports that they are experiencing anti-Gypsyism or other form of racism and discrimination, and only 53% are in paid employment. And when we look at the health, education, or housing, these indicators are very poor when we are comparing this with the majority. These are the facts. Next slide, please. Our research was made in 6 countries, as was mentioned, in Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, Spain, and additional, there are also evidence from Ireland and Sweden. And we choose for this year the topic of Roma access to quality and inclusive education. You have already the reports printed on your tables, but for the people that are watching us online, you can download the report also online on the link that is already prepared also at the website of ERGO Network or other social media links of ERGO Network. And also this report will be available at each website of the national organizations that they were preparing these case studies. So you can also download it from the national levels. Next, please. So what are the key messages that we are bringing from our case study? I have to say on the beginning that these key messages for most of you are not new, that you already know them, but also we have to say that even if you know them, they are still on the table, and in many cases the status did not change, even if maybe you heard about this like 10 years before, ago. So our first key message is that in all 6 countries, Roma continue to face low education, entertainment, and living outcomes throughout the life cycle. There is a really very low participation in early childhood education, and in many other researches, you will find out that this period of the life is the crucial when you want to have a better skills in the future. So I think that this is very important thing, that in many countries this part of education is not covered, and the Roma, they don't have access, or they don't participate, Roma children, they don't participate in this part of educational process. And this is one of the reasons why their outcomes, educational outcomes, are very low, and they are achieving very low results in education, and they are still facing some disadvantages. The comprehensive investment in Roma education is urgently needed, and we need to ensure wraparound support policies from early childhood to adult learning, combined with adequate funding and disaggregated monitoring and indicators by ethnicity. Because if we want really to know what is the status, we need to have also adequate data. Next slide, please. Then we are coming to the key message 2. And this message is about the barriers, about the financial and non-financial barriers that are leading to lower attending education or not continue in education. This is the reason why there is a high net, like not in education and not in training rates among Roma learners is so high. These financial and non-financial barriers are linked in many times with the social and economic status of Roma families or communities, and it includes hidden costs for transportation, for meals, for clothing, for digital access, for example. It's something that will rise up in a few years for sure. For school materials, that only if the teacher is asking the children to pay 20-25 euros per year for the fund of some equipment, for example, for the school. For most of you, it's something that you are not thinking about it. But for a lot of families that are living in very poor conditions, this is a question, and it's something that is embarrassing the children to go to the school if they are not bringing the money. So there are also barriers connected with the area where the children are living. There are many researches and findings that are saying that also the segregated area is a barrier to the education, and even if there is a very good quality education in segregated area, it's not helping to change the status of education of the children, or how to get a better chance for the future. So this is also a very important barrier, and it's also linking with the very low quality education in such segregated areas. Please, next slide. There is the key message 3, and this message is about support for Roma learners and their families remains inconsistent while educational mediators are underutilized. So it's like this message it's about the lack of support for the families and for the schools, for the teachers, from the side of the system. And we know that educational mediators or teachers' assistants are very important in the educational process, but they are in most of the countries they are based. Their positions are based on the project-based positions, and if the funding from the project is finished, their work also finished, and it's not systematic. It's not something that it's a part of system, and the teachers, the schools, and the communities, the parents, they can count with this type of help, of this type of systematic change in education. So we need to establish stable state-funded system of educational mediators and assistants, ensuring proper accreditations, fair pay, and coordination with teachers and social services, alongside providing bilingual after-schools and parental outreach programs. This is very important also when it comes to the families of the children when they are coming to the school and maybe they don't speak properly the national language, then they can face an additional barriers that can really cause to not to be success in educational system. Next slide, please. It was mentioned on the beginning about anti-Gypsyism and segregation, and this is very important that it still remain pervasive and it's still very high, and it's a big barrier that really makes Roma not to be successful in the educational system and as in the system as a whole. This is crucial if we want to really change the position or to discuss about Roma. We have to start with the fighting against anti-Gypsyism and starting to create inclusive and a respectful environment for all. We find out that, for example, Roma language, history and culture are largely absent from national curricula, and this is something that occurs in each country. That when it comes to the information about Roma, about the history, about the information about Roma, that they are not in curricula. It means that they are that Roma are not in the nations, like in the system, and it's I think it's this is the place where we can really improve the status, and we need really to really act when it comes to the anti-discrimination laws in education, and we need to call for more Roma language or history in curriculum, and that is something that is that will create a culture of the school, and not only school but also the community. Okay. Next slide. I like that. But you know, it's so important.
Finished and absolutely.
Okay. So the next message is about the fact that Roma are out of lifelong learning, which means that they have also problem to get a quality employment because they don't have proper education, and they lack of social mobility. So our message is to create supportive lifelong learning opportunities, and we need to design second chance programs that are really helping, that are really effective, and with relevant skills training for the people that are in this kind of programs. And we need also to take account that the people they can be in different situations, so that they need also some help when it comes to different starting points. Next, please. And we are coming to the last message, and it's about the participation and about involvement of Roma experts and civil society organizations into the process of education and into the process of co-creating sustainable ways for life. So this is also very important that we need to create environment where Roma experts or other experts are in, and they are all the stakeholders. They are working together to create programs and to create environment in which all children, children are feeling like that they are needed, or they want to be there. They are wanted. So this is our last key message, and we are coming to the conclusions that are coming out from our case studies. So Roma learners participate less in early childhood education. This is from the first message, and it's really important to think about this. And I would like to add here that this part of education cannot be only in the head of NGOs or small initiatives or in some local activities, but this must be something that the system and the national at the national level, the states, they will decide that this is something that we need, and not only for Roma children, but we need for all children in the countries, because it's something that will give them bigger chance to be more successful in the future. Then we need really to be more active when it comes to the segregation and special schools placement. There are infringement processes against Slovakia right now on the table for special schools, and the Roma are placed in special schools in Slovakia. Then all 6 national Roma frameworks include education as an objective, but targets are vague, concrete measures are lacking, and there are doubts about the needed political will. This is something that is very important to say, that there is a big, there is always the big question about how the education will go, or if there will be some changes, because we have a politician that they have the power to decide, but still there are other actors that can be active in the school, and this remains also at us, to take this role and to help change this position. I would like to thank you for your attention, and please, you can continue with the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roxana, for this. This was an excellent presentation with so much wealth of information that we've received, but also so many different challenges that we need to address. So that is quite some work that we have to do, and for that we have a panel of experts that is joining us to discuss their reaction to this report, but also their perspective from the line of work that they operate in. Panelists can stay over there and speak from there, but as we've established at the beginning, if the people in the room don't hear you, they're going to point up. You need to increase the volume, or they're going to point down if you're shouting at them. So just specifying this. We will start with Alyosha Rudash. He is joining us from the Netherlands, actually. So luckily, the railway system allowed him to be here with us. That is great, because we're going to start with a perspective from early childhood education here. Alyosha is a program manager at the International Child Development Initiative based in the Netherlands, as I said. And his career is directly linked with early childhood education and care, research on inclusion, and particularly also on Roma learners in this context. So, Alyosha, the floor is yours. Looking forward to hear your reactions to this report, but also the perspective of your organization.
Thank you. Well, David Menza, and hi to everyone. So, yeah, my train was a bit delayed or cancelled, actually. My battery on the computer ran out, so I used my phone, I used my notes, so yeah, I did a lot of things. So I'll try to be loud, clear, but also address key points. So today we are celebrating 36 years since the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child was adopted. And listening to the report, you who didn't have the chance yet to read it, I read it, it is sad that after 36 years, we come back to children talking about severe issues that are not addressed properly. And we are talking about the instrument that kind of laid the foundation around the globe to protect children, to give children access to education, to leisure, to safety, security, proper housing, and you name it. And after that time, also all the other policies, be that an EU national level, started building and building on this instrument. Yet 36 years after it, we still have to address such serious questions. And we start in the early years, yes. And this is a period which we don't consider as part of education, because we always think it's about play. We always think it's about, just like a funny, cute little moments, and children are either nice or not nice, or active or not active. So not much of a learning actually happens. So we start to talk about, children taking seriously their educational path only when they enter the first grade of primary school. Why? Because it is compulsory, it's mandatory, and it's linked to the broader economic structure of the country's policies. But this is not true. The evidence from the early years, actually in the past decades, brought a lot of insight that early years are important, especially the first 1,000 days. And here I like to always give a little lecture, because this is also how I act as a trainer. So the first 1,000 days are the foundation. So this is up to 3 years of age, like infant toddlers. And it's where the rapid growth of the brain cells, when synapses kind of come together, and everything is kind of marked about the positive relationships, about, the positive environment, about interactions, about the support. It's about, the dialogue that the mother and the child, or the father and the child have. So it's all about those things. But now, imagine a Roma child looking at the report, looking at the data. We didn't hear much new because it's already too sad, the image itself. But we just tried in this report also bring another perspective from the countries in. But yeah, the situation is very serious. And now imagine a Roma child in a family where there is a poverty, where there is a hunger, where there is no stable housing, where there is, constant prejudices, exclusion, pressure, etc. How this child can actually grow up in an environment that supports her or his potential. And it's just like, it's not doable. The circumstances are so dire that it's just like sad even to think about any potential opportunities around there. So, and for example, what I wanted to share, and I'll read it. So today UNICEF posted about the children, because it's a International Children's Day as well. They shared a post saying, "My day, my rights." So from the moment the sun rises, children wake up to a world shaped by choices they didn't make. But every child, everywhere, also wakes with rights, including the rights to be protected, rights to learn, and to have their voices heard. And UNICEF says it is time to listen to children, to understand what their lives are like and how their rights are presented, or present, or missing, or pursued every day. And they are kind of calling us to join actions in advocating for disability, especially for young children, because about the education, from the first grade on, from when the child is 7, 8, we do talk about children. But then when we come to Roma children, like we see from the report, there is, and as Susanna was mentioning, more than half of them don't have access to. The half, less than half, like 53%, 3 to 6 years old or the age of compulsory, are attending or are enrolled in early childhood education and care services, and I marked for myself. So enrollment doesn't mean participation. Participation doesn't mean access. Access also doesn't mean attendance. So it's just data. Somebody registered a Roma child in a kindergarten at the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, but further elaboration on it. Does this child attend regularly? Does this child has a right to participate in the co-creation of the curriculum? Does parent have the right to enter the classroom and spend time with the child? And so much more. Because when we talk about high quality education and care, or high quality education, we would, in my field, immediately think that in this component, inclusion is an integral part, which is for Roma children is not the case. We still use inclusion as an umbrella term to perform both segregation and integration, let alone assimilation and so forth. So it's like also questioning ourselves, do we really understand within the educational spectrum what the quality inclusive education actually means? And the other aspect that I wanted to bring in is also that the early years, yes, they set the foundation for later future. The science is clear, and even nowadays the new science that tells us, for example, that what surrounds us shapes us. And only picturing from the data presented in the report, you can easily visualize or create a visual of putting the child in the center, and let's name it that this child is of a 5 year of age, and just put around all in the circles, all the barriers or the conditions and the environment that this child actually faces. And it's the outcomes on the other hand, it's a miracle. Then we have in Roma communities individuals, as many of us are here, because those of us who've been Roma, brought up in a segregated community without access to quality education, we did have some heroes or heroines here and there who made for us, things to move forward or who advocated for us. But not all the children have this privilege. So that's why, no matter I'm being Roma, I always call myself I was privileged. While the other reality that was only 100 meters across my street, with the same potential, perhaps even bigger one, didn't succeed because there was no heroine, hero, or whoever angel who would save that potential. So that's why what is my always a plea or an urge is that when we talk about education, we always think about early years as well, because they are very, very, very important. And as Susanna was mentioning, the second chance programs, and opportunities, for sure for the adult education, but there is no second chance for early years. You know, early childhood is a period of a great plasticity, and 95% of the brain develops up to age 5. And then at later stages, the plasticity still remains in place, so we can still do some corrections if we are late, but the majority is actually, so we are wasting the potential. So our systems in which we operate, which we support, no matter what our position is, it's actually are creating the damage on the long run. And here I think I'll stop because I might go beyond.
This is a really, really amazing perspective also to actually understand that you might play to learn, but it's not a play with what you do about early childhood education here, and you actually have to focus deeply to avoid that we have martyrdom or heroes and actually have a process for all of the learners. That is an amazing perspective, and now we do also segue towards later years in life, towards school education. We have with us actually Rui Teixeira. He's the Secretary General of the Organizing Bureau of School Students Unions, OBESU in short. OBESU is basically getting together all of the national school students unions, or the vast majority of the national school students unions across the EU, in general secondary and secondary vocational education across Europe. They have a working group in particular on equality and inclusion, so it's very deeply close to their heart, this work. We're very curious to hear from you, your reaction to this report, but also a bit more because we can increase the diversity and equality for Roma learners in school education.
Well, thank you very much, Andrei. Good morning to everyone. I hope you can hear me. If not, we'll follow the procedure. Thank you very much to the ERGO Network as well for the invitation, and especially for the amazing work they developed, to Susanna as well with this amazing report. It was really sad indeed, but a pleasure to read it and to see the amount of data collected and the important examples collected as well. Andrei presented already a bit of what OBESU is. We represent general students and VET students across Europe. We have 35 national organizations representing students in 27 different countries within and outside of the European Union, but based in Europe. And for the work that we develop, the work that OBESU develops, inclusion, and especially the inclusion of ethnic minorities, takes indeed a central role and is at the core of our actions and our principles. This is reflected across the organization and across the policy and advocacy work we do, because we do believe that schools are not only fundamental to ease the barriers with which students come to the school, but mostly important not to deepen even more the barriers and the difficulties with which these students arrive to the school, which in the case of ethnic minorities, in the case of the Roma community, and as this report shows, it's still happening in a lot of different places in Europe. So with the ERGO report and with the analysis of these 6 countries that we had the chance to read, we had the chance to confirm something, this sad reality that we already knew, so we don't take it as a surprise, that Roma learners continue to face systematic barriers in access to quality and inclusive education, resulting in persistent gaps in enrollment, in achievement, and then in attainment at all levels. And these difficulties exist in different forms and in different shape in their education, in the access to early childhood and care, as we just heard, in the illegal practices that were also mentioned in the presentation, of segregated schooling and misplacement in special education, in the absence of bilingual support and mediation, with the complete inexistence of Roma language and culture within the curricula, and with this very sad phenomenon that we see growing in Europe of anti-Gypsyism. We, in OBESU, we published almost 3 decades ago something that students all over Europe made, and that they call the Declaration of School Student Rights. It was last updated in 2023 in our General Assembly. And we have no doubt in considering that these practices disrespect the most basic rights of students that are stated in this declaration, and particularly Article number 8, the right to maintain cultural and personal identity, that clearly states that every student should have the right to maintain their cultural heritage, and that the school must be a place where the individuality of the student is respected. So I would like to look a bit at this report and to tell you a bit about this report and work we do through the lens of a document we just recently approved in our General Assembly this year, which is a policy paper on the inclusion of ethnic minorities in schools, and that establishes three main goals and objectives that are very much connected with the findings of this report. The first one is the need to improve the implementation of national policies regarding the integration of ethnic minorities in the education system. It is true that during the last couple of years or even decades, many European countries have created national policies to support ethnic minorities in schools, ethnic minority students, but these are often not fully implemented at the local level and at the school level. And as a result, while countries say they now have national policies to fight against this discrimination, many minority students still go to schools where these practices continue to happen, where they face discrimination, where they have lack of support, and where they are faced with exclusion. This is often because schools don't receive enough support or resources to apply these policies properly, and because at the same time teachers may lack training in working with these types of students, and schools may not offer the services that are needed, such as language support, cultural support, and mediation. So it's fundamental for us that every school has a clear plan for including ethnic minorities, and that the necessary funding is carried out to implement at the local and at the school level the national plans that have been established. And this is also clear in the report when we look at the non-financial barriers to education that the Roma community still faces when they come to school, and where it's mentioned the shortage of qualified teachers, where it's mentioned the shortage of specialists, of intercultural mediators, and how this further limits the learning outcomes of Roma students. So this is for us the first goal of this document. The second one is indeed related with curricula, and it's the supporting the reform of European curricula to eliminate Eurocentrism and include broad information on a wide array of cultures. It's a key step for us in creating an inclusive education to reform the curricula, to make sure that it reflects the diversity of students that arrive to school, the diversity of their backgrounds, and it's indeed true in many, or in most, I would say, of the European countries within and outside of the EU, that the curricula still focus mainly on European history and culture from a very narrow and misrepresentative perspective, overlooking other parts of the world, their people, and their culture. So we do support a broad curricular reform that includes these perspectives, this heritage, this history, and these cultures, and that brings the history and the experience of colonized people, of migrants, of ethnic minorities in Europe into the curricula. And again, the report also shows the lack or the superficial approach to Roma-related content in the curricula, lacking major historical injustice, for example, the Roma Holocaust or slavery in Eastern Europe, remaining marginal or entirely absent from the textbooks in our schools in Europe. And as a result, most Roma children complete their education, go through their education without having any mention or any context to their people's history, to their history in our European continent, and with the lack of information about it. And then the third and the last goal that we consider to be fundamental is implementing clear and objective codes of conduct to eliminate racism and discrimination in our schools, while facilitating school boards' capacity to sanction these practices when they happen. If you go to a school today and you ask the director of the school or the principal of the school if they have racism or discrimination in their school, they will most likely tell you no. But then if you ask them, if this happens, what practices do you have? How do you fix it? They will most likely not know how to deal with it, because there's just this assumption that these practices do not exist in our schools. And for us, it's so fundamental that schools put in place concrete actions and concrete plans to deal with these practices, so we manage to eliminate them. And having in mind that the vast majority of discrimination happens through subtle biases, subtle exclusion treatments, and so we need to take them seriously, and we need to find the mechanisms to deal with them at the school level with clear procedures from school boards. And again, also with this third point, we found evidence in the report that when we speak about anti-Gypsyism in education, training, and lifelong learning, that these practices are still perpetrated in our schools, in our educational systems, without clear mechanisms to deal with them, which then leads to Roma pupils being frequently stereotyped as less capable, and then translating into either lower expectations or harsher punishments towards these students. And with here a side note to the double effect of discrimination, and this is again a growing practice in Europe nowadays. For example, when we think about the digital sphere and this run that we have in our schools to have them more digital, to have more digital education, but then with the double effect of discrimination on ethnic minorities, on poverty communities, and on the Roma community in particular, because these students not only lack the access to education, so making their education more difficult, but then they face discrimination in school, they face punishments in schools because they don't have the access to these means. So we have, again, a double effect of discrimination. And last but not least, we have an extra goal that we want to achieve in our organization and in education in Europe in general, which is to have the recognition and the growing of student organizations representing ethnic minorities in Europe. Within OBES, we're very proud to have some organizations representing linguistic minorities. So we have, for example, the Hungarian-speaking minority in Romania, the Swedish-speaking minority in Finland, which are a big part of our, and take a big part in the work we do in inclusion and in the inclusion topics, but we need to increase the representation of these students, of the Roma students as well at the table, and make sure that they have a seat at the table when decisions about them, about their education and their learning are being taken. And so for us, this is also a fundamental objective. So overall, we believe that a lot of diagnoses have been made about this topic. So this is not surprising news to, I think, any of the people in this room. A lot of pilot programs and grants have also happened with very interesting results, but we think that it's about time that we go from this pilot diagnosis phases into structural change, and you can count on OBESO as an ally to keep on pushing this change forward and to keep on bringing an access to quality and inclusive education to Roma learners and Roma students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a clear plan ahead with a lot of systemic change needed, though. So that's gonna take a lot of collaboration amongst all of us to achieve that. Before we move, actually, just a side note for the participants. You might clearly be aware that we're going to be delayed, of course, for your lunch. So massive apologies for how I'm moderating this and how I might keep you away from lunch for a bit. As a result, if you have any kind of additional questions or any curiosity from all of this richness that is coming out from the conversation, or you feel aligned with a lot of these messages, which is true, are very much known by a lot of us, you have the lunch break to discuss with all of our panelists here, and Susanna as well, if you want to report. So I'll move then to our next speaker, Angeliki Anapoglou. She is a senior policy and project coordinator at the European Association for the Education of Adults, EAEA in short. They are promoting a very holistic approach to empower adults in education and training, actually viewing adult learning as a human right, but also a common good that contributes to European society. So and can you tell us a bit more about the conclusions that you've heard, but also in terms of what can we do for better equality and inclusion for adults this time in education and training?
Lovely. Thank you so much, Andrea, and thank you to everybody that spoke before me. And I think that what has been done already is that we have a very clear image of what is happening in this absolutely amazing report. And I'm saying that not only because of the vast wealth of the data and the very meticulous work that it seems that you really did, but also because of the power and the imperative that we get out of such a report. And I think that it is very refreshing for us as well, that in other areas are producing reports like this one to get a bit of a lesson on how to do it without hiding away of the imperative for change, especially when discussing marginalization and systemic exclusion. So from my part, thinking about what I can actually say that has not already been said in this report was to try to maybe give you a bit of an idea of our allyship, as Rui said, in terms of adult education, and to also maybe raise why we should be talking about adult education and lifelong learning when discussing the right to inclusive education. So the first thing that I might say is that adult learning and education are fundamentally linked to the struggle and the claim against persistent education disadvantage. And this is because the very birth of adult education was to bridge the gaps for the most marginalized. So we see that adult learning and education are very, very important elements to counteract all this long-term and cumulative effects of systemic racism and systemic anti-Gypsyism, as we saw in the report, as well as segregation. And I will agree, segregation goes very well hand in hand with assimilation and integration when it's not, meant on a, with such a clear and innocent, let's say, agenda. We have seen again and again that integration can actually mean assimilation, because this fundamentally is again linked to Eurocentric approaches, as you said, of what is considered normal and what is considered good. So in this, we find a concept that we use a lot at the EEA, and you can see also in our manifesto about the power and the joy of learning, because we see that education actually represents both very, very essentially. There is this need, first of all, the first part of our action has to be linked to addressing the cycle of exclusion and oppression. And this is very important for us, as Paulo Freire said, of the conscientization that we claim in adult learning and education, getting people to be conscious of why they've been excluded, who has excluded them, who is in charge of the change, and how can communities be self-empowered to change the very systems that oppress them. And I think that this is very essential because, indeed, as you said, children live in a world that is saved by choices that did not make. And in adult education, we go one step beyond and we say, but can change. But as people, we can still change. And we can change it if we claim for the provision of second chances. As Susanna said, if we aim for systems that actually build confidence in the communities and do not retain the power of the top-down approach, that we do not do what we do in order to engage our roles and keep our roles and keep our setting as advocates of the subaltern, but we actually get the marginalized communities confident enough, empowered enough for them to have their own voice and for us to stand and support when and if needed.
And for that, we also heard from the cabinet of the commissioner, from Eva Schultz, that the union of skills is a very important step that recognizes unseen barriers. And for that, we say that in basic skills training, we always need to have an approach through critical pedagogy to understand who are these people that need basic skills education, why do they need basic skills education, and what are we not counting in this endeavor? What skills are we not seeing? What bases are we not covering? And for that, it's very important to address some things that we always keep on saying in adult education. We always need to address the practical needs as well. We always need to keep in mind childcare, income support, transportation, proximity. All of these are also findings of the report, and we're really happy to see that they're included, because they are absolutely essential, not only for the Roma community, but for every single adult learner. And in that, it was also very evident to me when reading this wonderful report, how it's important to improve the relevance of the adult learning and lifelong learning provision. And for us, this means not only making the content more relevant, but also diminishing precarity in the learning opportunities, diminishing fragmentation. We have many short-term and weak solutions most of the times, not because civil society is weak, but because we cannot have systemic change without systemic support. So it's very, very important that we see all of that, and we actually start acting for them. And you asked me, Andre, also the gender approach, and I think that there is this hat that I wear as someone that has delved in gender studies, and in the wording and in the fight that we're currently are asked to fight. There are many similarities, and I will stand on something that Susanna said at the end, that all of these you have heard before, but this doesn't mean that they have been solved. And this is a very key motto that we have in gender studies. It's the fact that we have rights now does not mean that we don't need feminism. The fact that we have more rights now does not mean that we don't need anti-gypsist fights. And I think that's very, very essential and very important. We congratulate, of course, and we're very happy to see that we have recommendations, that we have approaches, that we have policies that support our claims. But in reality, we need to push for more state-based initiatives as well. We need more involvement of the actual people in the actual dialogue. Not only by proxy. It's great that we're all proxies here, but we actually need the actual people in the lot. And yes, I really think that this is a great group of people to actually start working for this goal together. And because I know that we are running a bit behind from time, I will just close this down by saying that. When I first started working with the EAA at one of the member organizations in Greece, I actually started working as an adult educator with the Roma community of my city. In the beginning, working with women, and then also because there was a need for it, also working with children because we had to split. Some of us had to work and engage with the children so that the mothers could actually attend the courses. And I remember something that came up again this year, almost 10 years later, in a project that we're running that is called Enhancing Learners' Voices, where in my, I think, first lesson ever as an adult educator, I go into this class full of Roma women. And we're like, hello, how are you? And we have a circle because we are non-formal education. We are for non-formal approaches. We're like, and we want this and we want that. How do you want the classroom to be? And they're like,
actually were very disappointed. We thought that we were going to school because we missed on school and we want a school setting. What is this circle that you put us in? So we said, okay, granted. So we made the desks, and then there was like, okay, notebooks, a curriculum. So okay, let's go the formal way. This is what the people want. So this is what we give to the people. And then, based on the fact that, these women got what they wanted to do. They said, okay, this is learning, so it should look like learning. But then slowly, and by gaining trust and by seeing other ways, the women themselves started working in groups, started working in circles, starting breaking, the narrative of the established educational system. And I think that for me, that was very essential on why I'm doing what I'm doing and why it's an imperative. It's not only an occupation. And I think with that, what I want to say is that we first listen and we then act. No matter what we have studied, no matter what we have read, no matter what kind of policies we are designing, first and foremost, we have to have the learner on the center, listen what they want to do, listen what we then can do for them. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Anthony, especially for the last comment on listening and active listening, actually. But also for the perspective on intersectionality. We've been talking a lot about the different identities that learners have, so it's quite crucial to also recognize that. We move now from the perspective of education and training providers operating within civil society or within research or actual practitioners, maybe from a more institutional perspective. We have with us Gareth Hughes. He is working for the European Agency for Special Needs and Inclusive Education, which is a body that brings together member states, actually, specifically ministerial representatives with a mandate to achieve rights-based, high-quality and inclusive education systems. So very curious to hear, Gareth, what is your perspective also on the role of policymakers of institutions, but again, also of networks such as yours in this process.
Thank you very much. So on behalf of the European Agency for Special Needs and Inclusive Education, I'm very pleased to respond to the work of the ERGO Network, and in particular to the new research report on Roma access to quality inclusive education. So ERGO's analysis and recommendations are a powerful call to action for everyone committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion in education. And we fully recognize the persistent inequalities highlighted across Europe: low educational attainment and low expectations, ongoing segregation, financial and non-financial barriers, and the impact of anti-Gypsyism. There are systemic issues that require coordinated and long-term responses. And as many of you know, ISNI's mandate is to support member states working with ministries in building inclusive education systems across all stages of learning that guarantee quality, equity, and participation for all learners, especially those vulnerable to exclusion, including Roma communities. We emphasize multi-stakeholder collaboration involving learners, families, teachers, communities, and decision makers. And this collaboration is essential for sustainable change towards inclusive education. The report's recommendations strongly resonate with ISNI's core values, including a commitment to equity and access for all learners, especially those most at risk of exclusion, the importance of desegregation and full participation in mainstream education, the need for culturally responsive teaching and curricula, and the value of strong monitoring, meaningful data, and participatory governance. These principles are central to ISNI's work, and they are clearly reflected in ERGO's findings and proposals. I'd like to add that for everybody here that said that they had access to quality and inclusive education, there is no such thing as partial inclusive education. Inclusion means all learners. So we are especially pleased to see that the report emphasizes several areas that strongly align with our priorities. But I would also like to highlight several challenges that we see in implementation. Many of the recommendations of this report require substantial local adaptation and capacity building. Even strong national strategies can struggle at the local level because of limited resources, insufficient training, or a lack of coordinated work across sectors. For sustainability and funding, we share the concern about heavy reliance on short-term project-based funding. For real, lasting change, successful initiatives must be embedded within national budgets and mainstream education systems. And for data and monitoring, while ethnically disaggregated data is important, we also need to acknowledge the legal and ethical complexities involved. Building data systems that are robust, transparent, and respectful of the rights is essential. When it comes to approaches to segregation and special needs, the report rightly highlights the urgent need to end school segregation and misplacement in special education. But we would like to add that context matters. Definitions and practices around special needs and segregation vary across countries. Solutions must be tailored with safeguards to ensure that support for learners with genuine additional needs are not inadvertently reduced. And for teacher capacity, the success of desegregation depends on well-prepared, motivated teachers. We support the report's call for increased professional development and for autonomy of all educators. Our mandate covers all learners at risk of exclusion. While targeted measures for Roma are vital, we encourage universal design for learning, embedded Roma inclusion within broader strategies. This will benefit all vulnerable groups and help avoid stigmatization. And intersectional approaches. Many Roma learners face multiple disadvantages, including poverty, disability, and access to services. Policies should reflect this complexity and allow for a whole school approach. When we think about the role of national governments and European institutions, national governments can adopt sustainable public funding instead of short-term EU project dependency, collect disaggregated data regularly and transparently, build integrated systems linked to the education, housing, social protection, and health sectors, and enforce anti-discrimination legislation and tackle segregation with clear timelines and clear political commitment. European institutions can continue monitoring segregation through infringement procedures and analysis, through the European semester, for example. Continue to provide funding for structural reforms, not isolated pilots. Strengthen alignment across education, equality, Roma inclusion, and social protection agendas, and support peer learning and ensure that Roma civil society participation in all EU platforms. The evidence is clear. Inclusive, high-quality, disaggregated education is a foundation for Roma equality. Achieving change requires political will, sustainable investment, and genuine partnership with Roma communities. And as the report states, inclusive education is a cornerstone of democratic and social cohesion. This is an investment for all learners, including Roma, towards Europe's future. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. I think this also links very well with what we heard from the Cabinet Executive Vice President, especially competing challenges and certain implementation at the local levels and difficulties in adaptation certain policies. So quite interesting to hear that perspective, and even more important, the fact that we've heard a nod to the European semester and what can also be done, knowing that the ERGO Network is very much engaged with the European semester and works on that. We have one more speaker with us from the European Commission, actually. But before I pass on to you, Miriam, if you allow, we have also a lot of people in the room which I'm sure have ideas on what needs to be done. So apart from all of the suggestions and solutions you've heard from here, I want to turn to you and have 5 minutes where each of you discuss around the table what one solution you consider would help for inclusion of Roma learners. Now, this one solution doesn't mean to be a silver bullet with it to fix all of the issues, but rather, if you had to prioritize and pick one kind of action that you want to work on and you find important, I would like for you to discuss 5 minutes around the table of this. And then I'm going to pick up some of the ideas from the room. For the people online, I think the colleagues have already put the Slido up. I'm sure you have access to it. You can also share the same kind of solution online. We can have a look at what you're sharing with us. So for the next 5 minutes, turn to your peers, you as well if you'd like, and discuss about one potential solution. Of course. It's change of mindset in the system. So we have a nice frameworks, curriculums, policies, but we have professionals. All right mindset in the system. So myself worked in the education system for 11 years. I don't believe that you have so if you don't believe that the Roma child, Croatian child, Spanish child, especially communities have rights and participate in the process.
I can say that we start tackling everything at the same time. And what we would have is a education that is very nice as well. I'm the same. No, actually, they're not. Everything is wrong because, you know, And when they said that, no, this is it. My position is not in my position. I was, you know, like somebody in my I had such a that for a good 30 seconds. And what I figured out what I actually wanted to say was that This is quite unacceptable, and I cannot imagine this discussion. This was the only thing. This difficulty.
Okay, so I'm going to be cutting you off. I'm very sorry that I have to introduce this. I'm sure that this question is important. And I'm already at hardness and bit from the room. So we have a bit already on the screen. Plenty of suggestions that have been mentioned, I think, across the report. Ending segregation fund, fighting anti-gypsies, and parent support, which is quite on point as an action. I want to hear also a bit from you now. Is there a particular table that has one idea that really wants to share with us? I might point them. You know, there's always that risk. Yes, please.
So this, well, we have more solutions, of course, in this case, but start for one, because we're wondering how is the structure of funding directed to Roma grassroots organizations, Roma communities, Roma learners, Roma individuals. So where is that link? Structural funding.
I see. I think Gareth was mentioning also about that
Financial
funding.
and financially and facilities. And also, of course, the parental involvement is very important for parental participation. And also because there's still lots and lots of inequality, of course, what we've seen. Yes. Also the case of statelessness, for example, how do you address this in all these beautiful policies? Yes. And also what's happening all over Europe, in every European country, that also children are taken away by state institutions still. This is also a fact. It's very desperate parents. So how will you reflect on this?
That is quite
To
interesting.
stop this anti-gypsy and anti-Roma.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I think when we talk about parental support, that definitely also illustrates how we make sure that parents can retain their children actually together as a
Oh,
family.
yeah, and just one more thing, because we're speaking about the inclusion of Roman history and also. So who is going to do that? That has to be the Roma themselves to do that.
Yeah.
And not just putting in national programs or national this or local that, public funding whatsoever. It will never be implemented as it should.
I think
That's right.
this means very well with what Daniel was saying at the beginning when he mentioned that the work of ERGO Network is for and with Roma people. So that's it. If we do any kind of reforms, I think we engage.
Yes, but I mean also in every country, of course. So with all these institutions and organizations and what's.
Thank you.
That's right.
Any other table that would like to jump? I'm gonna make eye contact with somebody and then I'm looking in the back over there. The table in the back, would you like to share something?
I would want to see more how to do something because all things are on paper. But the real stuff, politicians must have a better answer to what to do, not only on the paper and inclusion. How many years are we inclusion, but we don't get to the end of it because it's a structural yes. So that's why we must go upward, not including, always talking about inclusion, how to break the structural and get somewhere.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Maybe time for one more? There we go.
Yeah, just one. This could have been written 10 years ago, right? The content is exactly the same as what was said 10 years ago. So I think one possible solution would be to, like, instead of focusing on what doesn't work, which we know and which is the same for decades to decades, why don't we invest more resources in identifying what works on the ground and upscale it? And I want to pass the floor to some Belgian colleagues who have identified what works.
Yeah, in some cities in Belgium, we have like some, it's difficult to translate, but like bridging figures that are working in schools, and they're like a mediator between families and the school, because yeah, in some cities, they really want to attract the Roma children and other ethnic minorities, and they really put that into work by going by the families, going to their houses, creating a bond, and that's something we notice that is working for our families. But it's not in Belgium overall, it's just some cities that are, yeah.
And you see like schools that don't have those rich builders, like sometimes I go with services who say like, you know, the school has no idea of what is important for Roma children when they go to school, when they want to enroll in school. So this really works. Like, but it's only in certain cities that it exists, or that it is like part of the school system or the school of use, like that there are people working in schools doing this.
Thank you for that practice. Is anybody from Ireland in the room actually? Do we have an Irish colleague?
Oh, no.
Just asking that first, because linked to that, there's a great example actually that Ireland is doing, also implemented just in a few schools where they have homeschool family liaisons basically. It's exactly the same kind of model, not necessarily only for Roma, but it's quite broad, and I think I fully agree with you that we need to focus a bit more on what works actually. I see a lot of hands popping up. Okay, I'm going to give the floor to one more person, but only one more person. We've heard from that table. I might go to the back over there. I see you gentlemen, you have your hand up for.
Well, just a quick comment. Thank you for the possibility that slide of said type one word. It was not clear if it expects one word or a sentence. That's what we are learning. Also, Europe is diverse. I'm coming from Hungary and I'm actually from Autonomy Foundation, which is a Roma organization. So in certain countries, like in Belgium or in Western Europe, the community is diverse from different corners of the world. When it comes to Hungary, thanks to our government, thanks to government, no migrants are in the country. When you go to the countryside, there is only one minority, really, Roma. So that's a totally different picture than that there are Muslims and there are different people from different corners. Just a very outrageous news snippet from Hungary. There was an opening of a school year, and a teacher said, "Oh, thank God there is no Mohammed in the school." So, but there are Roma kids in the school, and that's a totally different landscape than in Hungary. When it comes to access to quality education and inclusive education, it's entirely about Roma kids, entirely. Whereas in Belgium, I don't think it is. So definitely, it's more difficult to target Roma when there are so many other minorities. But in countries like in Italy, especially in Hungary, it's a totally different picture. In a country where parents can decide which schools they are sending their kids to, there is a blind flight, and they go to wherever, because that's a freedom which is given, and no one can take them from Hungarian families. The Hungarian families are racist as well. So therefore, they send kids to whatever school they want, and in public schools, there are Roma kids in church-maintained schools or business-oriented maintained schools, there are non-Roma kids. So that's a totally different thing, and we are talking about Roma, but in each country there is a different landscape.
Absolutely. And within the Roma community, within every single person is quite different over there and might have different needs and journeys and everything. So thank you very much for that comment. Now, I think I've made you wait quite a lot, but thank you very much for that. So I'll pass on basically the floor to our last speaker of this panel conversation, Liliana Urbanska. She's working with the European Commission with the Director General for Education, Youth, Culture and Sport, DG EAC. Miriam is actually a desk officer for Slovakia and Czech Republic, so we might hear some hints also from her on those particular countries, but she's here also to discuss about the European semester and the monitoring through the European semester. So I think I like how Gareth already set you up, Miriam, there to be able to speak about the semester. The floor is yours, Miriam.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have presentation. Thank you for inviting me to your conference. I work in DG Education in Analysis Unit, and I'll have a very brief presentation today on how we monitor situation through which tools. Next slide, please. I'll start with a few key documents, then I'll go through the tools we are using and share with you latest trends and indicators we are using, and I'll finish with example of Slovakia, as I'm a country policy officer of Slovakia. Next slide, please. Inclusive education and equal access to quality inclusive education is among top priorities of the European Commission and the member states within the European education area. I highlighted 3 documents as I'm aware of pressing time. I won't go through them. I will just mention Equal Treatment Council Directive, very important, EU Strategic Roma Framework Quality, you are going to discuss this afternoon, and also the Council recommendation on Roma equality. Next slide, please. Education and Training Monitor, it's an annual exercise. We have this annual document we published. Last one was published actually last Thursday. It consists of comparative report and country reports. This is, for example, country report for Czechia. We analyzed the situation and developments in education systems with all levels, starting from pre-primary and with adult learning. And we also each year have different horizontal theme. For example, this year's theme was focused on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. In education, it is linked with our focus on making Europe more competitive. And previous year's topics were sustainable or green education, or we focused on teachers. Next slide, please. I added the link. One more click. I added the link because this report is also online and also in all EU languages, and a good analytical source, as I see the researchers here today and policymakers there. So I invite you to look at it. Next slide, please. Then European semester is very important framework where we analyze economic and social and employment policies, and education is one of them. Previously we published it every February, now we publish it every June within EU semester package. It provides fact-based analysis on each country, identifies each challenges. We have a special annex on education, where we identify challenges, and on that basis, every year we published and Council approves and Council published Council-specific recommendations. Next slide, please. Yes, and now let us start with a few trends and few indicators. I start with the youngest children. It was already highlighted by previous speakers today how important it is to have children actively participated in